to the Sponsorship Warehouse with Carrie and Ali, talking all things sponsorship for associations.
Today we are covering a real smorgasbord of things. Everything from planning all the way through to valuation and pricing and what the right partners can bring to the table. So we're covering kind of all things, all singing, all dancing today. But I think it all really does come down to planning and the impact that has on the ability to give you the time to find the right sponsor, but also plan out what that program is and how you can identify the right partners at the right time and approach them with the right background. And it all stems back from planning.
Yeah, so planning, I mean, it's so important, isn't it? I mean, just take, for example, we were in a meeting recently with a membership organisation who, in theory, at this time of year, should have a number of programs that are pre-planned. And when we reached the meeting with them to talk about what their sponsorship opportunities could be across their content, programs, initiatives, research, etc., their spreadsheet was bare.
Yeah, it's that horizon scanning thing, isn't it? Where they're not necessarily piecing together the forward-looking content that they've got and how it fits and where the gaps are.
Yeah.
It's just a very reactive approach, whereas a lot of our other clients are able to forward plan. They're looking at pillars of content. They're thinking about priorities, hot topics, what sets their voice apart in the market. You know,
Themes.
a lot of professional bodies these days are up against the big four's content because it's so good, all the secondary firms.
Yep.
There's a lot of content out there. And if they're not focusing ahead and spotting those other things, they're just covering old ground that others are already doing that have bigger budgets, bigger resource, bigger capacity.
Yep.
It's got to be about that unique selling point, the unique angle, layered that with the independence and credibility piece. And I think that gets missed a little bit in terms of, we need to do a piece on this, but haven't actually looked out at what others are doing and where the unique point is.
So you've touched on something there that I think is really important, because you talked about the content, the planning, etc. So I think sometimes we use language like that, and then we're having a interface face off with clients, and maybe they don't understand what we mean by content from the context of planning activity that we can build sponsorships and commercial partnerships, or that they can leverage. So can you put you on the spot? Can you explain what you mean by content and those topics and pillars in the context of not wanting to freak our clients, our membership organisations out? It doesn't have to be a massive content plan. No. Give us some examples. What do you really mean by that?
So I think at its biggest, most strategic level, it is the big, robust, evidence-based research that addresses a topic, fills a gap, addresses an industry or sector problem and looks for a solution. And normally those do one of two or three things. They either give media and PR coverage, they boost policy and lobbying activity, might be about advocacy in terms of driving forward and representing their industry or sector. So at the biggest level, it is that kind of stuff. And that, normally fits through to detailed reports, PDF documents, summaries, policy recommendations, on-page content. If professional bodies are doing what they need to and they're really making assets work for them, they then create podcasts and webinars and
but
further
it feeds
practical
into speaker programs, so they pick up the same topic as part of their annual conference and
in
stuff.
Events and regional road shows, or even down to their industry and special interest group work. It at the biggest level, it's big multi-channel pieces like that. But down at a more simple level, it could just be some on-page content with a downloadable checklist. It could be a diagnostic tool. It could be that they're looking for ways to give members some practical content that they can download and take away. It could even just be an event content. Do members need practical 1 hour morning forums? Where they can log in, listen in, learn something, take it away. So content is more, for me, driven by the topic area. And then you pick the format that's going to suit best.
To deliver that. And then what we would do is then look at that and go, okay, is that sponsorable or not?
Yeah.
And does the sponsor connect into the theme and the topic that's been discussed or shared?
Yeah.
So what about like when you've got a trade association that's literally got like 2.5 people working in it, but they're still doing such great stuff. They punch above their weight, but they just don't have the resources to run massive research projects, etc. And they're actually really dependent on external partners and sponsors to help them deliver stuff.
I would always say to structure the relationship in a way that you've got a cash investment that then the trade body could reinvest so that they still own the IP, so that they're the ones doing the work. I think a lot of professional bodies, because of capacity issues, because of resource and skills issues, fall in the trap of going, oh, big 4 firms offered to do that research for us. Isn't that brilliant? Not necessarily. Yes, it's great from a cost perspective, and yes, it's great that you've got someone doing that work for you. But ultimately, the trade body walks away less off because they don't own the IP, they don't have the ownership. The firm or the organisation that ends up running that project feels like they have more ownership over it and believe that they can make all the calls. So I would always, if you're a 2-man team and you want to run a project, map out what that project is, look at what you want to achieve, what your members need, go out to the market as if it's something you're doing anyways, value it correctly, not value it at what it's going to cost them to deliver, but value it based on what the outputs will achieve and what you know a partner will be able to get from it in terms of profile and business development and column inches or speaking opportunities. Get that investment in and locked in, then use it. If you need to hire a freelancer to help you write the survey, do that. If you need to hire someone just to run that project, do that. If you need to hire a research organisation because perhaps your membership aren't at a sample level that you need, use the investment from the partner to invest in that. It's all about owning the IP and owning the project. And a lot of them do fall in that trap of, even down to events. Oh, we'll host that event for you. Oh, will you?
This is a very common thing at branch and regional level.
We'll host that event for £2.50 and a packet of crisps, and we'll give everyone a bacon sarnie, and we'll have them in our office, and it's a walk-in audience that they could never get into their offices for an event. It's not worth it. It's much better if you run the event, get the sponsorship in from that organisation, and then say, would you like to host it in your offices as part of the benefits package? But don't then give them all the brand profile, the speaking, the access to the audience for free.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because the things that we're talking about here, if you've never actually done sponsorship before and you are in a really small membership organisation, whether it's a professional body or a society or a trade association, it's like, how do you really, how do you really know how to price something up? How do you really know what your worth is? And I guess we've been doing this for a long time, haven't we, Carrie? But for us, we've got a really strong understanding of, okay, you get 50 people in a room, you're talking about a really hot topic, sponsors involved, they might be hosting it in their office, there may be a report that's produced as a result of that, there'll be lots of marketing pre, during and post, lots of social media, and then that might turn into further engagement. Like for us, we would know roughly how much to price that. But for someone who hasn't ever priced up an opportunity before, where would they start with that?
For me, I guess it is an experience thing, isn't it? You do look at what your market value is.
Apart from hiring us, obviously. But
well, yeah. Apart from being like, Carrie, come and value this opportunity for me. I would look at what your market values are. Have a look at, you could use your advertising rates if you've got a magazine or something as a base understanding unit of what corporates pay. You know, there is a ceiling on some of these things. But also, you don't know until you start to take out figures into the market and have conversations. You can always start from a position of, I'm going to value that at £35,000. And a company will go, oh, that's a bit more than we'd like to, but we've got 25. If you start from a place of a number that you feel, I would always go above.
Yeah.
Give yourself some wiggle room, because then you can always say, no problem at all. 25, we can absolutely be flexible, rework this. How about we just take out this element, because there's a cost associated with that, and we can easily do that. Or, not a problem. How about you do sign up to 2 years? For the first year, we can do it at 25 for you. And then because of the value we're going to be delivering, if you commit to a second year, we'll put it up to the £35,000 that we discussed in the beginning.
Yep.
So I would always suggest to go that 5 to 10% more than what you're thinking.
Easily.
Because you don't know until you go out to market. If you go out and everyone is scoffing at you, or you're getting a lot of, oh, that's quite a lot for that opportunity, it then makes you understand, you know, maybe your student members aren't necessarily, because of where they are in their career, they're not making the same decision making or have the same purchasing power as your senior leader director members.
Yep.
So it's also about the audience level. For me, I look at what the reach is.
Yep.
Is it going to be big? Is it going to be niche? What's the seniority level of the members that you're engaging with? Are they senior decision makers, or are they students, line managers, early career entry? Who are you talking to?
All are valuable, by the way.
All are.
For different reasons to different sponsors.
Yeah. So, you know, a younger audience who's on a career pathway piece talking about careers in an industry or sector, recruitment love those types of opportunities because they're able to engage with a young career-driven audience. Your senior activity, talking to your leaders or your director level members, you might have much more of a firm consulting, insurance-driven, legal sector type partnerships because they want to engage with those that sign off on budget and have money to spend.
Yep.
So I would look at the audience. I would look at the outputs. If all you're doing is one event and you're going to do 4 social media posts promoting that event in the lead up, and you're going to do 1 email communication as a follow-up, very different level to if you're going to do mini polling in the lead up. You're going to be doing a 6-month marketing campaign to promote that event. If you're going to be doing a takeaway document, takeaway information, follow on. Can they be in the room? Can they speak? It's about getting a little bit of a sense of a multi-channel approach and then going from there with pricing. But I look at that.
Yep.
1 or 2 or 3 outputs versus 5 to 10 to 6 months worth of promotion, different leveling.
And I think there's also, I guess for me, what I would say is like, be brave, be confident, because 9 out of 10 times when we speak to membership organizations, no matter what type they are, they're always undervaluing, like kind of slightly low in confidence. And when we start, I've always imagine we start working with, Vince won't mind me saying this, Pensions Management Institute, like probably about 17 years ago. And obviously he's moved on now, and Gareth is chief exec there, and we don't work for them anymore. But when we originally started working for them, they were like, well, why would anybody want to sponsor us? We were like, they were like, we only have, I don't know how many members they had at the time, but like, we only have 3,500, 4,000 members. I'm like, yeah, but those 3,500, 4,000 members are responsible for trillions of pounds of pensions investment, not just in the UK, but, you know, extended globally. Companies are interested in that.
You represent UK PLC at a trust pensions level.
Yeah. It's like, I think that's valuable. And we work with them really closely to help them restructure their sponsorship and commercial partnership strategy overall, and help them build relationships that brought them income, but also so much more. Those partnerships also brought lots of content, and they were a small team, and they didn't have anyone that was in-house developing content or running research, etc. And I guess you're right. We help them to flip that model rather than going out saying, we'd like you to develop research for us, to we're developing a research program looking at pensions in the 21st century. Would you like to partner with us on that? And by the way, you can bring us content information where you get reach and engagement with our members, and it's going to cost you this much. make all the difference. And it's almost like overnight we saw their confidence change. They became, well, the profile raised because all of a sudden they were having to promote themselves a lot more externally. But also the content that they were producing was really high quality. And that then triggered a whole range of almost like an internal mindset shift as well, where their teams internally started to get really much more confident about engaging with external parties and who they were, and that fed into their value proposition.
Well, I even saw it this week. We're in a meeting with a client. There was a kickoff with a brand new big brand on a project of work. And what would normally happen with a project kickoff would be very internal. The timelines might slip a little bit. They might change the project a bit, but because we had a partner involved, and this partner they're high profile, they're a blue chip brand, it made the project much more structured. They delivered on time. The team were invested in it because they were working with a partner that was really excited about the project. Having a partner involved often makes something better because it becomes a project that you've got someone else involved with. So often, if you have the right partnership delivery approach, that mindset does come in internally in the team because they're working with other people who see the value, they're excited about it. It means they also have to deliver. And that project becomes something else because there's someone else involved, there's a third party there. And it often results in the project being better. I've got quite a few that we were working on this week.
Yeah.
Where a project that might have just been done, delivered, launched, put on the website and left.
Yeah.
Stagnate, sit on the shelf, became something that a partner said, oh, well, but we're running an event next week. I'd love to have your expert come and talk through these findings. Would you like to do that? And the client was like, yeah, we'd love to come and talk to your clients about this because there's a member acquisition piece there.
Yeah.
They're getting in front of brands that they perhaps wouldn't. So the longevity and the way a partner wants to wring out the partnership as well. You can position all of that not only as an asset, but it also helps that two-man team take something that they might have just, we all know what it's like when you've been, it's a bit like when you're doing a new website, isn't it? You all know you've been working on it for so long, you launch it, it goes live, and then you're just like, oh, thank God that's done. But actually, you've worked so hard on that piece of content, that asset, that project. Yeah. Don't just put it on your website and leave it.
Yeah.
Where's the follow-on engagement? Where's that, making it work harder for you, sweating it out?
Yeah.
Which we are doing in Australia in 42-degree heat today, by the way. But yeah, I think that's a really key thing when it comes to having a partner involved, where it brings a mindset change. They go, oh, one of the firms wants to work with us and they're willing to invest in that. Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah.
But don't tip it over the edge either, and don't become too big for your boots.
Yeah.
But
we see a lot of that.
Yeah. Or that mindset sometimes can go the other way. But
can I pick up on that?
Yeah.
So some organizations, some membership organizations, particularly after they've had quite a few years of running partnerships, sponsorships, and their teams change, etc., all of a sudden it becomes hard work. Oh no, not another sponsor, not another partner. Oh God, not more investment in to help us to do the things that we're, doing, or to help us reinvest in achieving our mission, or to pay our wages, or whatever it is. This becomes perhaps occasionally some negativity towards sponsors, like there's hard work. I know that we've witnessed this a couple of times recently. I guess it's quite interesting, isn't it? Do we see a pattern there? Like, is it a case of the more length of time organizations are doing sponsorships and partnerships, and perhaps even the bigger they are, and the more sort of turnover of their teams, the new team members that come in internally to the membership organization all of a sudden have to deal with sponsors and partners, and all of a sudden it becomes, again, it's back to that topic we were talking about earlier about, is it seen as something additional, or actually it's something that ought to be integrated into business as usual?
Yeah, there's that mindset piece again, isn't there? if they're talked about as being a burden, that's what will wave through the organisation, rather than saying we've got a strategic priority to build partnerships.
Well, that's a cultural thing,
Yeah.
or leadership thing.
It doesn't, sponsors don't have to be down here at the bottom. There are big partnerships that can help you to achieve things, and they should be woven into that narrative of what membership organisations are looking to achieve. And if you're not working with industry and you're not getting that viewpoint and you're not looking up and outside, that's detrimental as well, because we've seen many professional bodies that do stagnate. You know, you're working on a project at the moment where membership numbers have stalled for the last 4 years. They're losing senior members and they're not getting junior members through. Why?
Leaky bucket, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're not engaging with topical areas and providing the content and information and industry perspective and innovative content, or even just driving innovative initiatives and campaigns and lobbying. When
So sort of one size fits all for them. There's segmentation.
yeah, and I
isn't
think
there?
where you see that type of mindset around sponsors and partners becoming a burden or difficult, I normally would say it's one of two things. It's either because the process to deliver them isn't right.
Yep.
You've got someone or a team that perhaps doesn't know how to implement the right steps, processes. Managing partners is, once you get a bit of a process in place and you do the first 2 or 3 properly, it doesn't become a burden, because you're hopefully weaving them into activity that you're doing anyways.
Yeah. It's not it shouldn't be seen as an additional
Yes, you'll
thing.
need to apply their brand, get a quote and comment, loop them in, have planning meetings, bring them into the fold. That's also an opportunity to get, what are you doing with this? Oh, are you going out to an event next week? Why don't you take the report with you? Oh, you're getting interviewed by BBC. Well, one of our experts could come along. It's an opportunity to piggyback off them as well.
Yeah.
And if you're not talking to your partners and sponsors and you're not engaging with them in that way,
It's going to fail.
they're not going to
ultimately.
renew. They're not going to come back. You know, it's a bit of a tale as old as time, even from things like sports sponsorship in traditional areas like theatre, arts, music, culture,
Mm-hmm.
and to some degree foundation and grant areas as well.
Totally.
Partners don't just stay in it for the good of it. Yes, there's CSR boxes to be ticked these days, and yes, to some degree, they just need to be seen to be doing something. But there is much more emphasis on brand alignment, on narrative, on storytelling, on the bigger picture. And if that's being missed, the partnerships and sponsorships have to evolve if you want to keep those bigger brands looped in.
Yeah. But what you've described there is, in terms of delivery, sponsorship delivery, is like a standard, like you said, as long as you've got the process in place, you've delivered on a couple, you're getting familiar with the process, you've embedded admin, etc. It's just basic relationship management at the end of the day.
Yeah.
With obviously marketing, activation elements. Clearly, if there's a clear agreement in place where you know and you've already negotiated and locked down what the deliverables are for the sponsorship, and the sponsor is working with you on activity that you're already doing anyway, whether it's a podcast series or an event or a research project, whatever it might be, theoretically, those actions and those activities are already happening because you need to deliver on that piece of work or that program of work. You would, as a membership organization, hopefully have a marketing and communications plan around that anyway, or a PR, etc. So it is a case of relationship managing and project managing the activity and integrating the management of the sponsor into that.
That project runner role is really undervalued and forgotten about quite often. And we've just been doing it for some clients, haven't we?
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
they
that's a
actually
good point.
recognised and said, oh, we've got our subject matter experts, tick, who we never pretend to be. Yes, the team at B2B and in all our sponsorship teams, they have to be up to speed and be able to talk about a sector and industry that we're representing. but we never are the subject matter experts in something. So often you have the subject matter experts, you have your marketing and comms team who are experts in how to engage and support and position tone of voice and everything. But that person who sits in the middle is often kind of forgotten.
Yep.
And it is a project management organization, client relationship role.
Yep.
And we've
The
been doing it.
runner.
The runner. It's the runner. And we've been doing it for a few clients recently, delivering specific projects and also delivering big kind of wider partnership programs. And it's about communication. It's about organization. It's about keeping on top of actions. It's about referring back to your agreement, making sure you're delivering, not forgetting anything.
Yep.
You know, don't underestimate having quarterly meetings with your partner to check in with them for 15 minutes. That touch point is really important, but it is a time thing, and you start to see it fail. We know this from a lot of professional bodies at the moment. There is a squeeze on skills.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's roped into someone's job title without any time allocation to it,
Mm-hmm.
it does
Or
start to be squeezed.
KPIs.
Or KPIs. When it's not actually in anyone's job title, it's in everyone's job title. But then there's a confusion on role and responsibility and ownership of those relationships. And you need to have someone also who's on that journey with the sponsor or partner as well, so that they know that partner, they know their objectives, and having internal briefings with colleagues, bringing them into that, sharing the little nuances that you pick up on around how much time they need to sign things off, getting a bit of a feel for their brand look and feel, understanding that their subject matter experts don't like, I don't know, going all the way up north for meetings, timing things so that it fits in with agendas. That client relationship knowledge needs to be shared internally as well. Because otherwise you get a bit of a mismatch, and marketing team might ask a silly question, which the project runner might already know the answer to.
Yeah.
So I can't kind of emphasize how a 1 hour weekly partnerships update meeting with people that are responsible for delivering it is really important.
Yeah.
And we know clients that do that really well.
Yeah. And I know we're involved in quite a few of them, having come from the perspective of we've actually developed the partnerships for them in the first place. So I guess our knowledge and know-how goes way back right back to the beginning of what the sponsors' objectives were, what they hope to achieve by engaging and working with the membership organisation, what they want to get out, how they anticipate return on investment might look like, what the metrics might be, etc. And I know potentially we might be making this sound really complicated, but ultimately if a membership organisation has 5 or 6 sponsors, it could be across all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Just having that weekly check-in with the various people across the business who are responsible for the areas that the sponsorship sits around. And I'm not suggesting including the sponsor in this. I'm just saying this is an internal check-in. Have we done everything? Tick. Or do we need to include them in the next round of marketing or email communication? Or have we actually added their logo to the event's website?
Or the chestnut we get a lot at the moment is, the sponsor's not replying to us.
Oh my God.
How often are we getting that at the moment? We've asked them for that and they're not coming back. We've chased them for that and they're coming back. Well, why is that? There's a reason for that. Is there a lack of clarity on actions and next steps? Are they having multiple people asking for different things all at the same time? Is there, do you need to be more firm? You have to be firm and clear with sponsors and partners.
100%.
Often they're not, unless they're a really large organisation and they have a whole sponsorship or partnership team who's not dedicated to sport activation, who actually looks at B2B based partnerships and sponsorships.
Business partnerships, yeah.
There's nothing worse than having someone on a team who's used to doing football sponsorship and then they have to activate a B2B based activity. Like consumer side is so different. But if they're not coming back to you, there's probably a reason. Have you been clear enough? Did they know the timelines in advance?
Yeah. Again, it's your point about not be pushy, not be tough with your sponsor, but be really clear. The relationship management is so important. Yeah. Communication, account management, 101.
Yeah. It's We've been working on some content around it recently, just some real basics, because we're getting asked more and more at the moment around skills and those capabilities of doing that. And they're not sponsorship specific.
No.
You can apply project management, client relationship, communication, having a set plan, communicating that. It's not, they're kind of those universal skills that sit across it. You don't have to know how to sell.
Yeah.
I think that's the big scary thing that a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to have to work with sponsors and partners because I'm not a salesperson. Where I think the last few job descriptions I've written, it's not about being a salesperson. It's about communication.
You're talking about delivery,
storytelling.
service delivery, like actually delivering on the sponsorship once it's secured. Yeah.
It's, you don't have to, obviously to some degree you're always selling, right? You're in front of a sponsor that you hope will renew or spend more money with you. So you do have to know in the back of your head somewhere, just make sure it's there, but you're always selling.
And that's, you know, if they're not coming back to you, if you're chasing them for their logo or a quote or what they're going to speak about at your annual conference, etc., or how big their stand's going to be or whatever it might be, if you don't hear back from them, like, you're right, there is a reason for that. And it's really important to continue to engage with them until you get, because ultimately after the event's passed or after the year has gone over and you're having to FaceTime with them around what the success was from the relationship, they're not going to remember that they went quiet and you had to chase them and they weren't delivering. They're just going to look at the relationship and go, well, what did we get from that? So as well as that, always reinforcing the value of the relationship. And I guess this is a really important point, is throughout the duration of the relationship, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, whatever it might be, to be collating information that reaffirms the value that you as a membership organization have provided to the sponsor. It doesn't have to be complex. Literally, you could just keep a running list of things that you've done for them in contract, but also you will end up doing things over and above what was actually in the original agreement. We can come to how important agreements are in a minute, because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
you don't need a 37-page agreement to have a sponsor. You just could have a checklist in the body of an email, but we can come to that in a minute because we got a whole load of stories around that. But keeping track of what you've delivered is really important, because when it does come to renewal, you're going to need to pull that baby out, put it into a PowerPoint presentation and reinforce to the sponsor of what you actually delivered for them. And they're not going to remember the fact that they didn't reply to your email.
Yeah, and they missed 2 months worth of pre-event promotion.
Yeah.
They'll miss that. But yeah, I think that role is undervalued and really important, because it could also be, it's not just about having that role just for sponsors and partners. That internal runner role is also important if your professional body is outsourcing content, developing research partnerships, working with universities on evidence-based case studies and development.
100%.
If you're working with a learning provider, if you are building out new learning modules and training and development, if you're building relationships with universities to help the next generation. That role, those skills, is applicable to partnerships
Across the board.
You know, we're not just talking about big cash investment sponsors. You could, that person and that role can really add value to your other third-party relationships that are strategic. And it's about using that as well, because if you're spending a whole bunch of money with a university to deliver some research, or if you're spending big with a research agency, you want to be on top of that as well.
Yeah.
Because that's investment. That's resulting in work. It's resulting in content. And having clear pieces in place, even for those partnerships that are contra-based. So you could be working with another industry or professional body. it's the same principles. And I think that role is really important to even apply to relationships that you're not having a cash injection directly into your business.
Yep.
Because you need to be on top of those as well. And they need to be coming from a place of structure and ownership and all the things that come with it. So I think that role is one that we're really advocating for at the moment within professional bodies and membership organisations. And I know that that's a luxury. If you're only a 3-man team, normally results that it sits in one person. But you're also not talking about 25, 30, 40 relationships either.
No.
It could be that you just have a headline sponsor at your annual conference. You have someone supporting a research project, and you've got a couple of government or university or employer-based relationships that you want to keep on top of. For smaller teams, that's quite manageable, and
With a process.
with the right process in place, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say that's definitely something that we're seeing a lot of membership organisations taking on and bringing into the fold, because it's an important skill set, and it's always easier to keep a sponsor than find a new one.
Always. The point we just made around value, I think, is really important, because you talked about it doesn't have to be a massive cash investment from a sponsor. There's contra relationships, there's relationships with employers, there's relationships with suppliers, training partners, universities, etc. There's a whole raft of different types of what we would call partnerships more broadly. So we break them down. We said, what do we have? We have a hierarchy in our B2B way. So we have strategic alliances, commercial partnerships, sponsorships, more tactical style relationships, and we've got we map these out really quite clearly. And I think something you said earlier really resonated with me is, and we try to do this with every client or get them to think about this. Every relationship has a value attached to it. Whether you're paying to commission something, whether it's a joint venture or whether it's a commercial partnership, sponsorship, or a contra relationship with a venue provider or a catering provider or even a media company, there's still a value and a benefit associated in relation to that arrangement for you as a membership organization. And I feel where a lot of our clients get stuck is they don't define that value that they're receiving. And it all becomes a bit disparate, and all of the relationships get quite murky, don't they? Scope creep. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Like, you start off a relationship over here.
Yeah.
Doing something really specific. And then suddenly you're marketing their training to your members. How'd you get there? You've got your marketing team having to fit in.
Yeah. Not only your own training.
Not only your own
but
products and solutions
training,
and
because
membership.
Yeah. Yep.
And that normally becomes from scope creep and
Yep.
lack of clarity on what a partnership's there to do and what it's going to deliver.
Ring fencing.
Ring fencing. How many more little business one-liners can we get in?
That we can plug in there. So, yeah. What's ring fencing, Carrie?
What's ring fencing? Well, lately it's about keeping sheep in a paddock, but it's around trying to keep something with some boundaries, whether it's topic driven, whether it's activity driven. And if a sponsor asks for something in addition, make sure that you know how to say that, thanks for raising that. We'll take that away and come back to you. You can third party these things on calls if a sponsor's pushing for something you don't know how to answer it because you need a bit more time.
Yeah.
You could say, that's really interesting. Leave it with us. We'll group in internally and we'll come back to you to see if we can support you on that, whether we can do that for you. Do you have any additional budget if it's going to cost something? You can be really frank with them because often they know they're asking for something that's outside the scope. So,
and I think that's where the value thing comes in again, doesn't it? Because you could take that away and go, okay, do we want to actually ask them for additional investment to do that bit? Or actually, is it really, what is the value to us for them to take our report and promote it out, or have an extra print run of something, or for one of our internal people to go and speak at their annual conference? Yeah, it might not be in the original agreement, but actually we're going to get X, Y, and Z as a result of that. Or if it's something that they want to now invite 10 more people to your annual conference as opposed to their original 5 that were included, that's going to incur a real cost to you. And the benefit is going to be to them and not to you. And it's a one-way street. So you would charge them extra for that. It's about being really clear.
Yeah. And not being afraid to say, that's a really interesting question. Thanks for flagging it. We'll take that away as an action. You don't have to give them an answer right there and then.
Mm-hmm.
You also don't need to shut them down. You don't need to be rude or abrupt about it.
Yeah.
And I always try and, don't start going, oh, well, I'll check the contract to see if that's in there. Don't bring the contract into it. I mean, ultimately, yes, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've agreed something, it's ring fenced, but don't in the middle of a really nice, strong sponsorship meeting go, well, I'll have to check the contract to see if that's in there.
Yeah. That's relationship suicide, isn't it?
A little
I
bit.
mean, we're not suggesting you don't go away and check the contract, but to hard line it in that way, in that scenario, is not ideal relationship management.
No, and it's just having 2 or 3 one-liners. I mean, one that I use a lot myself is I go, oh, that's really interesting. I'll need to check in with our governance team on that. Like if they ask about something to do with IP or data or information or something that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
I'll check in with governance on that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, leave it with me. I'll check in with our communications team because they're the ones that are running this project. I'll need to check with them.
Yeah.
Oh, based on that request, I'll need to check in with the venue because there might be some real costs associated with that. Leave it with me. It's about being friendly, taking it on board. If you know it's never going to fly, but you don't want to be abrupt on a call, you could say, I'll need to check in with X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
But it might be something that we just can't quite fit in given the timelines. I think
it's okay.
It's okay to not have all the answers. And that's what your team should be there to help you with as well. By just having 1 or 2 ways in which you go, thank you very much, we'll take that away, is really useful.
Yeah, no, it is really useful. And I think, wow, I'm like exhausted after this conversation, Carrie. I mean, we've covered everything from value proposition to delivery to the value of content to how many membership organizations undersell themselves to how they can boost their confidence. It's just been a mammoth conversation, and our editors are struggling to know how to edit it, but hopefully it's been really useful to everyone who's listening.
We'll try and keep it a little bit more focused on the next episode, shall we?
Oh, I kind of like mixing it up a bit, but yeah, no, definitely. I think we have covered a lot today.
Thanks for listening to the Sponsorship Warehouse, where we bring all things sponsorship for association membership bodies. Don't forget to check out our sponsorshiptoolkit.com website for tools and templates, and stay tuned to our next episode.